How's it going, guys? Welcome to the Serious Angler Podcast. For those that are new to the show, the Serious Angler Podcast is created to highlight the many passionate and dedicated anglers that we have in our fishing community, providing them a platform to share their story with the world. If you guys aren't already, please go down and subscribe to this YouTube channel. And if you don't want to listen to the podcast through YouTube, you can find Serious Angler on the Anchor app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. Check us out. Thank you guys for watching. So in today's podcast, we host Casey Smith, another fellow New Yorker, to talk about what it's like to fish the FLW Costa Pros and kind of his strategies approaching new bodies of water and different things with practicing for tournaments. We're going to dive right into it. Hope you guys enjoy. All right, we are recording. All right, welcome back to another Serious Angler Podcast. Tonight we are joined by New York Hammer and FLW Costa Pro, Mr. Casey Smith. How are we doing tonight, sir?
What's up, buddy?
Good. I spent a long day working on the house, so it's nice to be home and settle down and talk fishing with you. So
I hear you. Any day is a good day for that.
Exactly, yeah. So how I like to start these is I like to, learn your story about how you got to where you are, how you started fishing and who got you into it.
Yeah, my dad got me into it. I don't know what year it was, but it's as long ago as I can ever remember. And we have photo albums in the house of me, around my son's age. My son is 5 now, and we have pictures of me standing in a weigh-in line next to my dad when I was that age. So he got me into it. He had a bass boat and was in a local bass club, Barge Canal Bass Masters, when I was a kid. And that's all I remember. We had a cottage. That's all I remember is fishing, as long as I can remember. We had a cottage on Cayuga Lake when I was a kid, and I would go there. The day school got out in the summertime till the day we started again in the fall, I would just spend pretty much the whole time on the lake with my dad or grandparents or whoever would stay down there with me. And, my dad had a bass boat back then, the whole 9 yards. So it was just in me as long as I can ever remember.
That's awesome. Especially growing up on Cayuga, you can't beat that.
Yeah, it was about, not as good as it is now back then, but it was good. And then my parents split up, and my grandpa passed away, and my dad couldn't maintain the cottage anymore, so they ended up selling it. And it was kind of coincided with that the lake went through a bad downturn, and then the fishing really stunk. And it got right around the time I got out of college and started fishing down there a lot again is when the lake came. It had a largemouth bass virus, and once it overcame that, it was right around when I graduated college, and it's been good ever since, getting better every single year. So decent timing for, I guess, a couple of bad things.
Yeah, I was just going to ask on your theory about that, because I know some lakes, get better over time either because of a lake or like a bass behavioral thing, but sometimes it's from anglers just getting better with, the baits and products that, as we innovate. But that's what I was going to ask you. Was it an angler thing that the lake became better, if it was an environmental thing? But it sounds like it was an environmental reason why the lake.
That was part of it. It went through a point when it was like 10, 12 pounds a day. It was really good. You can look back at some old BFLs through the 90s and stuff, and the weights were really pretty bad. And then it got better. It was like a light switch, though. Definitely the anglers have gotten better. Because the fish, especially in the summertime, are offshore. So back then, I don't even know how, guys like my dad used to find them. I know how my dad used to find them. He used to fish the bank. And that's what a lot of guys did. Yeah. And I know the guys that fished offshore in the grass would line up with this house or that house and, just take a shot. I don't know. But, also the lake went through that largemouth bass virus, I think is what was in it. And I don't know how it came back from it, but I remember in probably 2003, 4, 5, somewhere in there was an Avon Anglers tournament down there. And this was when they were running a lot of boats, like 80 or 100 boats. And the weights were bad, for years. And we had a tournament down there in August. And it just turned on. Like that day is when the 20-pound bag started coming back. And I remember me and my brother fished it. I had like an old 89 Ranger at the time, and we didn't really know what we were doing. And we went out and caught like, I don't know, 14, 15 pounds we had, a little bit on the bank, a little bit offshore, and everybody was kind of grouped up in this one big offshore community hole. And we were like, all right, we got this. We might have this one. We got 14, 15 pounds. That's a bag.
Yeah.
And we went to leave and go to check in, and my motor wouldn't start. And we had to get towed in by the sheriffs, and we were so bummed out because we thought we were going to win. I mean, we were probably like 18, 19 years old. I was at the time. My brother was probably 15 or 16. And we were so bummed out when we got towed in and we had that bag of fish, and we came in and it was like 22 pounds one, then 21 and a half, then 20, and then 19. We were like, geez, where did that come from? And it never let off the gas ever since then. It's only gotten better. So I don't know why it made a change that fast, but it seemed like it was that fast.
Yeah, now it's become, one of the, obviously there's a lot of big lakes in New York that anglers like to go to, but largemouth wise, it's become, the premier lake to go to if you're looking for a personal best, largemouth wise, if you're from the New York area.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a secret amongst, the country. It's not really around here, but I try not to talk a lot about it to the media, and I don't post about it a lot on social media because I don't want it to turn into the number one ranked bass lake in the country, and then there's guys there all the time. So, but it's good. I mean, it's as good as any of our smallmouth fisheries, I feel like, and any of the largemouth fisheries I've been anywhere in the country. It's better. No doubt, it's better. So.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that, where I've caught a 5 out of there, and I've posted pictures to social media and everything. And I've had guys from the South direct message me, and they're like, "Oh, where are you fishing? Did you leave New York?" And they won't believe me when I tell them that it's actually from New York where I caught the fish. They don't think they grow that big up here. They're like, "Oh, we thought it's only smallmouth up there, and that's all there is." But no, we get some big green ones. So
yeah, I mean, we got as many lakes with big green ones as we do smallmouth. I think. If you look at the Finger Lakes region, between the smaller ones like Canisius and Honeyway is not a big fish lake, but there's a million fish in it, and throw Cayuga in there. Keuka has giant largemouth in it, even though they're not the primarily targeted species in there. And NIDA has its years with big largemouth on and off. And even if you go to the Great Lakes or St. Lawrence River, I mean, you can catch all the largemouth you want to catch. You're not going to win many tournaments, but if you were on a vacation or fun fishing, I mean, you could have a ball.
Oh yeah, we're pretty spoiled up here. Where majority of our Finger Lakes, you can get a nice mixed bag if you want. If you know the lakes well, you can stumble on green and brown. Depends on
I was talking about it with a buddy of mine the other day. I can't remember who it was, but there was a bag out of the St. Lawrence River of largemouth last fall that was like 27 pounds or something like that. It was a local club championship or something like that. And the guy had 27 something, 28 pounds of largemouth. They're up there, but right now they're not getting targeted like the smallmouth, so they don't get exposed.
Yeah, I remember watching one of the lives with Bassmaster and watching Hunter Shryock come in with he had like 20 pounds of largemouth, and that was like everyone was watching, smallmouth. Everybody comes in and he pulls out these largemouth, and fans were like, "Where the heck did you bring them? Did you go to the right lake?" Like it was.
Yeah.
It was pretty interesting, but
they're in there. I mean, I'm guilty of it as much as the next guy. When I go to a tournament up there, I don't even bring my largemouth rods or tackle or anything because I say if I'm doing that, I'm fishing for, not even second, for like 25th or worse. You can do better than that, but I feel like if you're spending your time doing that, it's time you're wasting finding smallmouth. So I don't even bother with it. But
it was kind of a weird call he made going towards the green ones. I think that's just kind of where he felt comfortable. But, when you're in the St. Lawrence River, you have a chance at, trophy smallmouth. Why would you not? Why would you not?
Right. I just think you're much more likely to find a place where you can make 5 drops and catch 25 pounds in the time you would spend hunting for a decent largemouth that you're probably not likely to catch 3 or 4 days worth of them. That's a lot of big largemouth to catch there. There's a lot more big smallmouth. So that's why I don't even monkey with them. But I always say every year I'd like to spend a family weekend up there, or just a vacation for 2 or 3 days, and just go largemouth fishing and have a blast. I bet you that the FLW Pro Circuit Championship that's going to be in Every Fish Counts this summer, I bet that largemouth will have a very big hand in that tournament with, every fish counting. You can catch the fire out of them probably even at a faster pace than you can the smallmouth, but the size just isn't there.
That'll be interesting, but it's also kind of cool though, because when you're not in a tournament scenario, you feel more comfortable breaking away to what you know and going and exploring and trying to learn something different about, whether it be a bait or a certain area or a lake that you're not used to going after, brown or largemouth. It's kind of cool to, you can venture off without any risk of losing anything and trying to figure out something new. Like Lake Erie, I've talked to one of my buddies, Andrew Full, who fishes almost predominantly Lake Erie for smallmouth, said he found there's areas where you can catch 20 to 22 pounds of largemouth, which is unheard of on Lake Erie, which is it's interesting. We're pretty spoiled up here in New York, and it's very low key, which a lot of people from New York like it to be. So
yeah, I like that. I mean, I've been to Gunnersville many, not many times, but 3 or 4 times, and Kentucky Lake and everywhere, all those major fisheries, and you can go out any day of the week around here, even when there is a tournament, and it's never overcrowded. The fishing's always good. They're not overpressured. I mean, I hear people around here talk about, fishing pressure, getting to fish and stuff, and it's like, man, you should go to Gunnersville for a weekend. And I think when we were there for the Costa Championship, we had 200 boats or 250, whatever it is. This was two falls ago, and there was like a 300 boat team championship going on out of Tennessee, and another high school or college tournament going on with like 100 boats. It was ridiculous. There had to have been 500 or 600 boats out there, and I mean, you still catch fish. It's not as easy as it is around here, but they still bite. So the fishing pressure that people talk about around here sometimes is a little bit ridiculous, I think.
Yeah, when it comes to fishing pressure around here, I think that is ridiculous. I think it's more, if there's any pressure, it's more of like a Canisius Lake and a hot July day with the amount of boaters and jet skis, and that's about all the pressure you're going to get.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look at that lake, too. It pumps out big fish every single year. Last year, it turned down a little. I didn't go down there, but I heard the grass was a little bit off or something, and the weights were down. But, I mean, the place is a glorified pond. It's 8 miles long by, I don't know, a half or a quarter mile wide, and it's just 20 pounds after 20 pounds after 20 pounds from the day the season opens till the day we can't fish anymore. And it gets, more tournaments than anywhere we have around here. So, it takes a little more finesse technique there sometimes, definitely can be accounted to fishing pressure, but it's not like they just won't bite your bait or, when you get on bads, they're hard to catch or anything like that. It's not nearly what the country is like.
Yeah, and I think a prime example of how lakes kind of determine weights and how fish react is Canisius is a prime example this past year, where like we just went over, the grass went completely sparse, and it was like a very cloudy, it was very murky. It's weird for Canisius, in that late summer, it's usually fairly clear, unless, a storm rolled through or whatnot. But I had actually started night fishing Canisius because I was so frustrated during the day dealing with boaters and jet skis.
Yeah.
As a kayaker, especially, that can get very annoying, and especially when they don't care to look out for you.
Yeah.
So my buddies and I were like, we never tried night fishing. Let's try it. So there's really not much strategy to the night fishing, so I don't mind giving away this, honey hole, which the entire lake, it's you can do it around the entire lake, so it's not like you're spot burning either. But every night that we went out, and we went out 6 or 7 nights, we put up 20 to 22 pounds a night of just throwing topwaters, because the fish are still there. It's just it's behavior. You kind of learn something a little bit with that. And you're catching 20 to 21 inch smallmouth as well that are coming up to feed. And it just sounds like cannonballs dropping everywhere.
Yeah, they feed heavy at night in the summertime too. The smallmouths do, and topwater you can't. I don't throw it at all during the day down there, but I don't think you can catch them that good on topwater in the daytime. So that's pretty cool. That's something different to do.
Yeah, it was extreme. I was not used to that at all, but it was awesome. You're in the pitch black with your buddies, and then you're hearing your whopper plopper, and now all you hear is a cannonball drop and the rod tuck out of your hand. So it was a lot of fun. It was definitely different. I think the only lake in New York, this summer that really gotten a good topwater bite. And usually Canisius is perfect for it, but it was, Cuco was really good.
Yeah.
Cayuga was kind of hit or miss, depending on where you were.
Reno Night is probably the best one, I would say, for top water. But
yeah,
I guess I don't throw top water a whole lot, anyways. But I don't know, my theory is, I don't know, if a fish is going to come up and break the surface for that, it's probably going to hit a swim jig or a swim bait on its way by. So that's
half the
just
distance.
Kind of how I handle it. But fishing down in the South more the last few years for Costas and stuff like that, I mean, there is absolutely times when they prefer that over a subsurface bait. The fall time for sure down there, and then like the Potomac in the middle of summer, we've had a few of them in August lately, and for whatever reason, they will not bite swim jig or anything like that. But they'll come up and hit a frog or a popar or something like that. So I don't know what it is. I haven't fished down there enough to really know, but it doesn't seem to get that way up here. They're not going to pass by your swim bait to hit a top water. I don't think around here too often.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. You won one at Potomac, didn't you?
Yeah, I won.
So I say you know well enough then.
Yeah, in 2016, it's that one up there is from the Potomac. So it was 2016. That was not a top water event though. That was in June, post spawn. I think that's the best time of year to be on the Potomac. And I won it on a swim bait, actually, a combination of a swim bait, a chatterbait, and a swim jig. But I caught probably 75% of the fish on a swim bait, just a 4.8 Kitech that I had belly weighted, belly rib, like the old screw lock belly weight hook, old school style, like 10 years ago, old school style. And I just kind of feathered it through the grass, almost like you would a worm. And I found one little ditch that they were loaded in, and it was cool for 3 days. A magic spot. I never picked up the power poles for 3 days for the most part.
Yeah. So you've obviously been, as you said, there's pictures of you in line at a weigh-in with your dad and everything. So you've been in a tournament scene your whole life. But when did you kind of decide to take it to that next level?
Probably when I got done with college. That's when it really took off. So I didn't fish a whole lot during like high school and college because I was playing hockey so much. I played pretty high level hockey my whole life. And when I got into college, actually the first 2 years I went to Plattsburgh, so I was right on Lake Champlain, and there was not a lot else to do besides play hockey, enjoy a little nightlife, and then hang out around the lake. So me and a couple guys I lived with would start to go to the lake a little bit when the weather would get nice in the spring or in the fall before the weather got bad. We even ice fished a few times, and I started to get the itch back, more and more and more. Even before that, really, I started to get the itch back. And I think it was after my freshman year, I saved my money one summer, and instead of having money during the school year, I bought an old boat. And so I had that really right through college. And after 2 years, I transferred to Geneseo and lived on Canisius instead of living on the lake, on the campus. We rented a house on the lake and fished more than we did anything else, including go to class or any of that. But when I got done with college is when, the competition, the competitive, juices weren't being fulfilled anymore. I wasn't playing, hockey anymore competitively, really.
Yeah.
So I needed something to do, and I joined Rochester Bassmasters, which is just a local club. And, just met a bunch of really cool people there, guys that are still my best friends now. I met there, and we all were at similar points in our life where we were coming out of college, young, loved to fish. Almost all my best buddies played hockey too, coincidentally, that were in the club. So we all just had another level of competitiveness than, the average person probably has, and gravitated towards each other and taught each other. And the whole group of guys became very successful. And we all kind of moved down the road to fishing New York Bass Nation, or back then it was New York Federation stuff, and kind of came addicted to that path, trying to get to the Bassmaster Classic and running through points races. And, amongst our group, we were winning tournaments, and guys were winning Angler of the Years and qualifying for nation championships and coming within pounds of making it to the Classic. And it just kind of, spiraled. And then 2016, me and my best buddy Chris O'Brien at the time decided to fish. He actually decided to fish the Costas,
Mm-hmm.
And I said, if I can get some sponsor money to do it, I'll jump in with you. And I had a mutual friend introduced me to a guy that was willing to help out, and jumped in. And the first one was that tournament we talked about on the Potomac. And
Yeah.
that's just kind of how things, snowballed into where they are now. And I think when I got the first taste of, success at that level, there was no turning back, because it's an addiction
Yeah.
that's worse than, when you can work hard and, reap the rewards of that hard work on that type of a stage. It's I don't know if addicting is the word, or satisfying, or what it is. And for me, I'm not ready to stop, feeling that at the moment. So I'm just addicted to it at that level. I absolutely love it, and have goals that I haven't been able to meet yet at that level. And the next, as far as the next level goes, I don't know, where that'll go one day or not. But for where I am right now, it's, goes back to still feeling that competitive flow,
Yeah.
from college hockey and sports my whole life.
Yeah, and it's while you say how you feel that, I think a lot of people can see it too, and it shows. And it shows not only with you guys, how skilled you guys are, but your knowledge, in the results that you come from the tournament. And like we were just speaking at the expo this past weekend, and one thing I kind of joked with you about was, when you see Casey and Chris roll up to the launch for a tournament, you think, oh crap, anybody from New York knows that when you guys come, it means business, and you're not getting a win very easily. So, but you guys work for it. It's not something that was given to you guys. You definitely, the passion's there, and that's how you guys became as talented as you are today.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that, I mean, in our group of friends, I wouldn't even consider myself, close to the best angler in that group of friends. For whatever reason, I had, a few breaks that other guys didn't get, or, it translated better at certain levels. I don't know what the reason is, but amongst the group, that group thrives off each other. We still do now. I mean, it's a very tight group of guys. I talk about it, pretty openly. I've talked about it to FLW media, and a lot of people that, uh, even like rooming with Chris, the years we roomed together. We roomed together for 3 or 4 years in the Fed, and then a couple of years in the Costas. And the mornings when you're dragging, you don't want to get out of bed, and he pops up at the alarm, it gets you up because it's pushing you. There
Yeah.
was days when he would call me at 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, or I would call him, and I was dragging and not catching them and feeling bad for myself. And I would say, "Hey, are they not biting for you too?" And he go, "No, dude, I've got like, you know, 10 bites already, and best five probably would have went 22 pounds." And you're like, "Oh my God, I got to stop. I got to stop feeling sorry for myself, refocus, and go." Because, I mean, it got to the point where you literally didn't want to lose to each other.
Yeah.
But when it's that level of a guy you're doing that with, you just feed off of each other. And we have other buddies too that are the same way, and just everybody pushes each other, and everybody learns from each other, and wants each other to be successful. Most importantly, and it doesn't matter. Some of those guys are fishing Fed stuff, some fish BFL stuff, some fish club stuff. We fish all kinds of stuff, and we all want each other to do well at the respective level. And there's no doubt. When I met that group of guys, it changed the path of my fishing career. I was an okay fisherman, but I could never really win, or never get to the level I felt like I wanted to be at. And when I met those guys, they taught me how to win. They taught me how to be successful and how to work hard. And, through the years, we've just all fed off of each other in that regard.
Well, that's a cool system though, because everybody has their own strengths. Not everyone's going to be. When you look at one angler to the next, they're not going to be the same with their strengths, their confidence, their knowledge, their tendencies, I guess, in their decision making. Everybody's different. So it's cool that you guys can have that competitive drive where you want to beat up on each other, but at the end of the day, you guys are also there to, build each other up and make each other better anglers, because you guys can all teach each other something.
Yeah, we bust each other's chops pretty regularly. Every once in a while, someone gets a little bit offended, but get over it pretty quick. And the bottom line is we want everybody to do well. We care a lot about each other, and our families are close. It goes down to our kids. Our kids,
Yeah.
mine and my buddy Chris, our kids play hockey together and against each other. And we're at everybody's kids' birthday parties and that, whole works. So it's a tight knit group of friends, and there is guys, we've all developed now. It's matured so much that we've developed into very similar style fishermen, but
Mhm.
there's still some versatility there. And back when we all first met each other, we were drastically different. I remember at the time I loved fishing shallow, and Chris, he loved to fish out and fish deep and offshore, and he taught me how to do that. He taught me his system of how to fish offshore. He taught me his system how to break down water. He taught me his system of practice, preparation, everything. And that's where things changed for me. And at the time, I think my drive to succeed fed him as well.
Yeah.
And it was a very good relationship, and um, still to this day enjoy fishing with each other, talk about fishing together all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think yeah, a testament of you guys fishing together and how deadly you are was going back to Cayuga last year, and I'm sure people who follow you guys know just exactly how deadly you guys can be dropping
Yeah,
a
I
30
didn't
bag
post.
in New York is so hard to do.
I didn't post that one on social media for a reason. As much as I would have liked to,
Yeah.
I don't know if brag is the right word, but just feel success and share that.
Yeah.
I didn't post that one online because I was a little worried I was going to get a bunch of attention.
That's when you do
And expose the lake.
the shot where you have your phone from the bottom up, so you only see
Yeah,
the fish in the sky, right? Yeah.
yeah, that was fun. I never fished a catch weight release tournament like that before, and um, it was fun. It's not as cool as putting them in the live well and putting them on the scale, but
Yeah.
I mean, if you catch over 30 pounds of bass, that's fun any day of the week. So,
Oh. Yeah, I mean,
see,
yeah, any day, especially when you
I mean, it was one of those days where like what makes it fun for all of us to fish together is when you're with another guy who likes fishing so much that when a big fish comes over the side, you don't even say anything. You just laugh because you both enjoy it so much, and you're
yeah.
having so much fun. You can't even say anything. You just laugh, and that's what that day was just laughing about having a good time and enjoying it. And
Yeah.
fortunately, we get to have those days, pretty frequently together when we go out, and it's a riot every single time.
Oh yeah, I don't doubt that. You guys are both impressive anglers, and obviously, for the stuff you do post, people can see that it's a true testament. But when you bring up that point about not sharing it, and it's an interesting topic amongst the community because some guys kind of get annoyed by it. But when you look at things, guys work so hard to find that
Yeah,
success that granted, yeah, it's sometimes in some cases it's cool to share it, but when you put that many hours in and that
yeah,
amount of work and knowledge just to have somebody take that idea and takes
right.
30 seconds to run over there and then catch them, it
Right.
kind of it burns almost like because you put that much work into it. It's seeing someone take your success.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know. It's not that I want someone to take my success. They're not necessarily doing that, but
Yeah.
it, it's so hard. I mean, there's so many resources now to figure out how to find and catch fish, right? And when you put in, it's as hard as it is to do and win, and the whole process is just that. It's a process of
Yep.
doing that. And, for me, when I go down to the lake in the spring, and it doesn't matter if I go to Cayuga or Sodus or Canisius or Oneida, wherever I go, I mean, even in the spring when there's nothing on the line and it doesn't matter, I still idle around the lake. I still explore. I still experiment. I still fish new water I've never fished before because number one, it makes you better and more versatile. And number two, it'll pay off in the long run. And, a lot of times when I go to Cayuga in the springtime, I probably shouldn't admit this, but I idle for hours. I mean,
Hmm.
I'll go out in the morning if they're biting and it's pre-spawn. I mean, it's pretty easy to catch them. Most guys go down there and
Yeah.
catch the crap out of them.
Yeah.
I'll go out and I'll catch them for an hour to kind of scratch the itch, and then I might idle for 2 or 3 or 4 hours trying to just find anything I can find, and then go back to the bank and catch a few for an hour or two, and satisfy the itch, and then idle. I mean, run up and down the lake, idle. I don't just look at new water, run up place I've never been, and
Yeah.
that's the kind of stuff that pays off and makes a difference on days like we had last spring. And I've had days in the summertime too that have come from a springtime, idling around type day.
Well, yeah, but when you explore more and you try to find newer water each time you're out, it's better because when you're in a tournament situation and your best spots don't pan out the way you want to, you have more options to fall back on. Whereas you'll be, in that tournament situation, you might run new water that you have no idea what it's like. But
Right.
the more water you know of and have experienced, the more you kind of are confident running certain areas that you're not just doing something completely new.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what you were saying too originally, if I'm the one out there idling all those hours, like on a fun spring day when you could be catching 100 fish, maybe I only catch 20 or 30 because I'm spending all that time idling. Like, I don't want someone to just take that. I don't want to give that away. That's my work, my time. It's my process. You want to enjoy it when the time comes, not have it given away to the guy who was out there, just goofing around, having fun fishing. So I think that's why I'm more protective than, the average guy. And some people see that and take it in the wrong light, or you're a jerk, or, you don't, tell me the truth. I mean, it's not that. It's just, I get so much time to fish. At this point, I still have to work, and I only get a day or two to fish like everybody else does. And I have a family and the whole works. And, if that's, my little bit of time I get to fish, I want it to pay off. So I guess that's kind of right. I mean, we even do it amongst each other, amongst our buddies. My buddy, Tom, gets mad at me all the time because I go out and I hide stuff from him. And, why you got to do that? Don't, quit being like that. It's just a fun tournament. I'm not going to ruin a friendship over fishing. I'm like, I'm not mad at you. I'm not, but we all, we're just super competitive group of guys. And sometimes that happens.
Well, if you put it in like a work perspective, like you're working a 9 to 5 and say, that promotion is that, that 5-pounder, I guess you want to say. And
right.
You put in all that work to get that promotion, but then a coworker just takes that success from you and gets that promotion. It's like them stealing the best, but you put all the work in, and then
exactly.
stole right from under you. It's
exactly.
Yeah. So I can see, the both sides of that, but it's when you put in that much work, I totally understand. And I have some spots that are like that too, but
it makes it tough to do seminars and stuff. Like this weekend, I did a seminar at the Niagara Expo about Cayuga Lake, and I said stuff in there that was a lot of years of learning the lake and how fish move on the lake, and you get a little hesitant, but it's part of the job, I guess, at this level. Is you got to do seminars, you got to help sponsors, you got to help people learn to fish. I like teaching people how to fish. Just want them to catch my fish, but I like, when I go out with my buddy Liam, I fish with all the time. He's still young and he hasn't fished as long as I have. And I like taking him out and showing him, new stuff or stuff I found. It's a blast. And it's another guy who, when we go out and you're catching big fish all day and they come over the side and you just laugh because you both enjoy it. You just love fishing that much.
Yeah.
Talk about another. I love fishing that much where I want to be the one to catch them.
Yeah, exactly. But talk about another up and coming hammer out of New York, Liam. There, shout out to him if he's listening in. Haven't talked to him in a long time, but good kid.
He'll probably watch or listen, and I'm not going to give him too much credit because he knows he's good. But that kid, I met him when he was probably 15 years old, and he was in Rochester Bassmasters, and I don't know, you could just tell that he loved to fish, and he still does to this day. He's probably the one buddy of mine that's as sick in the head with it as I am. I mean, a couple guys, have kids getting older and jobs taking over and, other stuff going on. And Liam is young enough to where he doesn't have a lot of that. So he's still sick in the head with it. And he's ate up every minute. We talk and text every day about it. Can't wait to get to Saturday and, go fishing again. And he's got that natural ability to understand. I don't know if it's understand nature or patterns or the water or just detail oriented mindset. He's whatever it is that it takes to be a good angler, he has it. There's no doubt. But I'm not going to say any more good things about him. Let it get to his head.
Keep him humble, yeah. But
Keep him humble.
Yeah, it's evident though that it runs in the family too, because we spoke at the expo as well, is that his younger brother tears up the kayak side of things too. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a passion that must run in the family.
Yeah, his little brother's good too. And the crazy thing is they don't come from the background I have with my dad. His parents or his dad didn't fish, and I'm pretty sure he told me when I first met him that he just watched it on TV or read the magazines and thought it was interesting and took off with it. Asked his dad to help him join Rochester Bassmasters. And back when I met him, his dad was there every single meeting bringing Liam because Liam couldn't drive, and his parents still come to the weigh-ins all the time if we're close by or fishing a team tournament together. His parents are there all the time, so it's cool to see how supportive they are of each other and how much the kid, Liam and Aiden, enjoy fishing, at the age they're at. So
yeah, I'm about to hop off of this and go yell at my parents. They've never come to a single weigh-in.
No, mine don't come too much anymore, but every once in a while they'll come. My dad will come every once in a while, and stepmom, my wife and son come a lot. So if I'm in the hunt for something, they'll show up. So I know that they're watching. That's all that really matters, I guess.
Yeah, that's the cool part though, is watching families come and seeing the different things, especially the kids. Watching their mom or dad go up and weigh in some fish. It's pretty sweet. But one question I wanted to ask you. And obviously not to give away any of your information, because I know you still have to make a living this way. But when you attack a tournament on a lake that you've never been to, I guess, what is like your mindset going into it to, I guess, develop a strategy for your tournament?
I got a pretty detailed system that I like to follow, and it starts in the wintertime, and it's something actually going back to talking about Chris. Chris helped me with back in the day, and it starts this time of year. It's mid-January now. I'm doing it already because we're going to Lake St. Clair for the third Costa this year, and I've never been there before. So I hop online and do as much research as I can do, watch as many tournaments that are that time of year that I'm going to be there, and I usually go like plus or minus 1 month to play years with crazy weather variables and all that, and find the best areas of the lake that produce year after year after year. And, then I hop online to Navionics or Lake Master apps, and I still buy paper maps for every new lake that I go to and start to look at those areas. If you're going to the Thousand Islands, say, and they were talking about Waddington being good year after year after year, I would look very hard at that section. If you watch an Elite Series tournament now, they'll show you exactly where a guy was. So I'll start to look at that stuff and then find similar areas up and down the river, maybe find an area of the river or lake that's looks similar to the area that's consistently good, and just break down the whole body of water. I used to be really big also on pre-trips, and going back to the online research too, a lot of that is, baits that are good, patterns that are good, that type of stuff. So you just, what to have tied on. So then, I'll make a pre-trip. I used to be really big on pre-trips. I'm not doing it as much anymore. But a pre-trip is usually good to go and just look around the body of water in case it's not what you thought it was on paper or on the internet. There's nothing worse than getting somewhere and, like I remember the first time I went to Lake Champlain, I was like, oh, this rock is not what I thought this rock was going to be like. I have all the wrong baits tied on. I'm snagging stuff off. Or the St. Lawrence River, the current was way different than what I thought, or, vegetation on Gunnersville is not what I thought. There's nothing worse than getting blindsided by that, and then you're starting over once you're there. So a pre-trip is good from that regard. It's bad that you don't want to get hung up if you caught them, in June for somewhere, you don't want to be fishing that place in September, and a pre-trip will throw you off in that regard. So you got to be careful. And then I make a list, of here's the areas I want to practice. And I get pretty detailed with that. And then when I get there and I start practice, I just kind of run through that list. And once I hit something that's good, then I follow that lead until it's time to do something else. So I think the most important thing about it is it's a system, it's a structure, it's something that makes my time more efficient, and it keeps your mind on the event or the body of water. a lot more than if you were to just show up. And, just showing up sometimes is good too, but I like to know, as much as I can before I get there. And that goes down to knowing where the boat ramps are and even restaurants and hotels. I mean, you don't want to be running around like a maniac wasting time.
Yeah.
You have very limited time. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how I do it. And then when I'm there, I try and keep things as familiar to my comfort level as possible. If it's a lake that has grass in it, and I like to fish grass, and I try and find some grass that will work in the areas that I've broken down and use the techniques that I like to use. It's not always possible, but you definitely want to keep things as close to your comfort level as you can.
So I guess going off of that, could you name one fault I guess a lot of people who fish tournaments tend to make? Like if for people kind of getting into tournaments and whatnot, what is one fault that seems to be, I guess common amongst tournament anglers?
I think not being prepared enough. It's a little different when you get to the Costa or Tour or Elite Series level. Those guys are all prepared, but for guys trying to get there, it's that preparation. I mean, you don't want to. I used to get so aggravated when I would have a bad day of practice, come in at night and have no idea what to do or where to even go the next day. And I remember days when I would launch my boat in the morning and go, where am I starting today? And you can't be wasting time doing that. And what that leads to is, for me, it used to lead to, okay, that looks good, I'll just start there. And then your mind starts to wander and it's, well, this isn't right, I should be doing this, or I should be deep. And then when you go deep, you want to go shallow. So when I break everything down like that, it gives me a next step all the time. Even if stuff isn't working, I have a plan B, a plan C, a plan D. I mean, I got plan E, F, Gs almost every time when I go to a lake. And I think that's a huge thing, is not wasting any time. And then when you find something productive, you've done the research, so you know where you can find more of it right away. If I'm catching them on points, rock piles on the end of points on Champlain or something, I probably know or have an idea where there's a couple more if I've done the proper research.
Nice. Yeah, that makes sense. That's a good tip for people kind of getting into things that are trying to get more efficient in their tournament game. So like with all that preparation that it takes you to, get a plan down and feel more confident going into day one, how was the feeling at the Potomac when you realized that you won after all that work you put in? What was going through your head?
Dude, that one took a lot of work too. I had been there one other time for a BFL and done a ton of research, and there was gobs of research on the Potomac River. I mean,
yeah,
everywhere you turn. Actually, I'd been there twice. I went to I fished a college fishing tournament there in 2009. It was the first year or second year ever of college fishing.
Mm-hmm.
You weren't allowed to practice. You weren't allowed to use your boat. I didn't even catch a bass. And then I went and fished a BFL in like 2011 or 12. I spent a couple days on the river, and I knew it a little tiny bit, but leading into that Costa season, I did a ton of research online and had it narrowed down to where, I had a pretty good idea of a couple of sections that tournament was going to get won in. So we went down for a pre-tournament or pre-practice that year. I think it was Memorial Day, and spent like 4 days there. Chris went, he had a guy with him, and then I took Liam with me. And, the fishing was a little bit irrelevant. The patterns didn't really matter, but it became familiar, with how the tide moved up and down, and refamiliarized with how the grass laid out and just the size of the place, how long it takes to get from here to there. So we did all that and then came back for the tournament and, felt okay because we were catching some fish, and practice ended up going pretty good. And we got in an area that actually Chris and I were practicing in together, and he had a bunch of bites and I didn't have hardly any at all. And he said, I think it's related to the contour in here. There's some deeper water, and we both sat down and mapped the entire area out. It was like maybe a Monday or a Tuesday night, and we stayed out there until I mean, as dark as you could let it get, whatever was in the rules. I don't remember at the time, but we stayed out there as late as you could be and marked the whole grass out, where the dips were, the turns were, the drops were, the high spots were. Came in that day and talked about it, that night. And I went back out there the very next morning, first light. I was the first boat at the ramp. I think me and him were first boat. I went to that area and I had probably 10 bites, right? Caught one or two and then started shaking them off. And it was like, okay, this is panning out. And then, the first day it didn't work great. I started there and left there with 4 fish, ran up the river, lost a big one, and then filled out my limit. And those were the 6 bites I had all day. I filled out my limit with like a keeper. I think it was 14, 15 incher. And I had 14 or 15 pounds somewhere in there. And the next day, I knew there were still more fish in there. I just felt like I didn't play the tide right.
Yeah.
So the next day we had a really big storm come in, and it was blowing like 20 miles an hour out of the north, rainy, windy. I mean, blowing right in the area. And I had a co-angler from there, and I was like, man, I don't know if we should go down there. It's a long run, and if we get stuck down there, we're going to kill a ton of time. So I just debated it and, was so nervous. And we came out of Mattawoman Creek that day, and I wasn't even sure at that time where I was going to go. And I turned to my co-angler and I said, screw it, let's try and win. And we ran down to that area and ended up being the only boat there. And I caught 20 pounds. I think it was 20 pounds even that day. It was the biggest bag of the tournament. And I went from somewhere in the 20s or 30s to leading the tournament. So 2 days into fishing Costas, you're leading a tournament. And Brian Schmidt, who's probably the best Potomac River fisherman there is, was in second place behind me. And I didn't know it at the time because I was so green, but I had guys like Ron Nelson behind me and Jeff Colble behind me. I mean, it was a ridiculous list of guys behind me. I just literally was too, ignorant or green to know, innocent to know. And, I was exhausted by that point. The next day we went out and went through the top 10 and all that. And ran down to that area. And, of course, the guy I had with me was leading on the co-angler side. And we pull into the area, and I put the power poles down and throw in there, for like 15 minutes. And I turn to the guy, and I go, yeah, it can't be this easy for 3 days, huh? And as soon as I said that, one bit, and I caught like a 4.5. And I caught my whole bag that day in the next 10 minutes probably. And, I mean, I was hooting and hollering and screaming. I still did have one little one in there, though. So I didn't know, if it was going to be enough. I knew I had 15, 16 pounds, something like that. Schmidt was a couple pounds behind me, so he would need probably 18 to catch me. And we waited till the last minute. At the end of the day, another competitor came in there, and he got right on top of me. We got into an argument and this and that. We were going back and forth. And he told me what he had for weight. He was in maybe 5th or something. And then right in front of me, he catches like a 4.5 or a 5. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like this guy might have enough to beat me. He takes off and goes back as soon as he lands that fish because he asked me what I had. And of course, I undercut it. I said less than I had. So he thinks he's now got enough. So he runs back in. And I told my co-angler, I said, we're going to sit here till it's the last minute because I got to call that fish. And we sat, picked up, and finally ran back in. And we get about 5 miles into a 20-mile run, and my motor went into guardian mode. And my co-angler 100% had enough weight to win. We knew that he was probably good. So he had, $30,000 of fish in the boat. I didn't know what I had in the boat, if it was enough or not. And we made it back with like 30 seconds left. And I mean, I was calling the tournament director while I was trying to run in and everything. I couldn't eat or drink or anything the whole day because I was so nervous. And we finally get back, and I didn't know what the top 10 process was like. That takes forever and a day, it seems like. And I finally get up there, and they're like, all right, you need, I don't remember what it was, 15 pounds or whatever to win. And I was pretty sure I had that. And when the number popped up on the scale, I can't remember exactly. It was 16 and a half or so. I mean, there's pictures. If you look at like my Instagram profile picture, that's the picture when I won. And I just, let out a scream and a yell, and it was overwhelming. It was so unbelievable to have that much work pay off on that level that I can't even describe it. And I think the only bad part about it was there was like nobody there I knew to celebrate with afterwards because there's only like the top 10 guys there, and I didn't know anybody. All my buddies had gone home, and
Yeah.
we just got in a truck and drove through the night to get home. So it was a little anticlimactic from that regard. But I mean, I try not to live too much in the past. But man, when you have something like that happen, it's I think it keeps you motivated to sit back and think about it.
Yeah.
Once in a while, and when I come out in the shop and the trophies on the
Yeah.
wall, that makes you remember what it took to get that.
Yeah.
And I want to feel that again one day. I want to win an Angler of the Year one day. I want to do a lot of things one day, and those are the things for me that keep me going, is thinking about those successes.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, I agree. Living in the past, you don't want to slow yourself up and try to. You always want to try to become better. But I
Yeah,
think, especially when when you wake up in the morning, remember that feeling. That's your drive to keep working at it, to keep trying to become better, to go to that next level. Because
yeah,
that feeling there, I mean, that's what's got to keep you going. Like obviously not living and sucking everything from that one event, but
right.
just keeping it in the back of your mind of this is why you're here. You're
Yeah,
going for that next one, and not just living in the past, like you said. So it's good,
yeah.
like you said, it's a motivation. So it's
It
good.
is. That's what I use it for. I mean, I'm out here in the shop, and I keep my trophies on the wall and stuff like that over this way where you can't see. There's a bunch of
Yeah,
club tournaments and stuff on the wall, and I think it's a mindset too, a way of thinking that keeps you positive to keep that stuff fresh. I remember when I was really learning about the stuff we talked about earlier, trying to break through and win, and there was a point where I felt like I was close all the time and could never close a deal, and at the time, like YouTube stuff was getting big, and man, I watched everything I could watch where it was somebody winning. I remember one that really stood out was Casey Martin won on Chickamauga on the FLW tour. It was a
yeah,
circuit breaker episode, and just watching how all that happens, keeping your mindset right, thinking about the right things, and the whole process just it's a process, and that is part of it. It's thinking about success all the time, not the success you've had living off of it, but thinking about success. So when you get in those situations on the water, maybe when you don't know, do I stay or do I go, should I fish here or should I fish there, when you make the decision, you're confident to do the right thing.
yeah. Yeah,
So
I was listening to a podcast the other day when you mentioned staying or going in areas. There's the Brian Thrift rule where it's like the 15 minutes where if you go in an area and
yeah,
you don't get a bite 15 minutes, pick up and get out of there. But I guess it's kind of iffy in some situations where that could apply to, and sometimes you might just need to hunker down and stay. But
yeah.
it's all decision making is what it comes down to being a competitive angler.
Yeah,
It's
I think it helps too. Like I watch everything there is to watch. I pay attention to every tournament, especially when guys like Jacob Wheeler, Brian Thrift, Van Dam is one of my all-time favorites. I listen and watch to everything those guys do and say, and I think that whole thing just helps you become better. It's all part of that massive process of tournament fishing, and if you're not working hard, someone else is, that's for sure. So I try and be the hardest working guy. And I've had tournaments where, it doesn't go well. And, at least I come off the water and say, I couldn't have worked any harder. I know
yeah,
that, I can go home and be fine with it if I don't do well and move on to the next one.
yeah. That's a good mindset to have. It's more positive rather than focusing on the negative. So that's good.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my buddies will tell you, I'm not always the most positive guy, but
It's hard to
try and
be.
learn. Yeah, I definitely try and learn from fishing all the time, and I think it pays off, more often than not.
So looking, down the road, moving forward for 2020, what's the plan for Casey Smith?
2020 is back to the Costa Northern Division at least one more year. We'll see what happens. I don't think there's, I had an invite to the FLW Pro Circuit this year off of qualification, and I declined it because of the format changes. As far as it's still second tier to the BPT. The entry fees were a little ridiculous, and it was hard to find sponsorship dollars to support that. I mean, I have a job. Fishing is not my primary income, and I can't make what I make at my primary job under that format. I don't think so. I declined that. If I qualify this year, it would probably be the same answer. I don't know if that's the best road for me. I don't know if pro fishing is the best road for me, but we're going to look at things after 2020, see where it goes. I mean, you're talking about something here that I might finish 150th in the standings. I have no idea. I don't want to put the cart in front of the horse. I've had years that were good, followed up by a real dud. So that's a possibility. You never know. But for now, it's kind of hang tight. I've got a good little niche in the Costa Northern Division where it fits my vacation schedule at work. Okay, the tournaments are on familiar bodies of water, and I truly enjoy the media and people at FLW at that level. So it's very comfortable. I would like to try some other things at some point. I just don't know when the timing for that will be right.
Yeah. Well, I can speak for everybody from New York and the Northeast. We're rooting for you. Hoping to see that AOI.
I appreciate it. I want it's one of my goals is just, I want to be the guy who represents this area and represents it well. Jamie Hartman is doing that, but he took off on us. He lives in Arkansas now, so he's not a true Yankee who suffers through mid-January like we're doing tonight anymore. Yeah. So, I would like to be the guy who suffers through the winter and can succeed. I remember when I did well when I won on the Potomac. It was a goal that it seemed like at the time Costas and Opens and all that were either being won by pros dropping down cherry picking them or locals. And I always said I wanted to go to a southern fishery and be the northern guy that's not a pro, not a local, that can win. And I would like to be that from the Northeast. I'd like to be the guy who, number one, shows that we have extremely skilled anglers from here. We have great lakes. We have good, respectable guys. We work hard, and that we can hang with the rest of the country. I guess that's my main goal out of fishing, is to just be a figure that people can look at and say, hey, he works hard, he does it right, he's respectable, and he represents where he's from very well.
Well, you're doing just that, so keep it up, man.
Thanks, brother.
Of course. So while we're going to start wrapping up a little bit here, but before we hop into my little closing segment of some couple fun questions I like to ask, are there any pro staff or any social media people should go follow?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not super active on social media, but I try to do it. I vow every year I'm going to do better. But I got Instagram. It's Casey Smitty. Facebook is just Casey Smith. It's a regular page. It's not a fan page or an athlete page or anything like that. So that's just at Casey Smith. I have some YouTube, which I am 100% going to do better at this year. I bought some equipment. That's just at Casey Smith. There's a few Casey Smiths on there, so search Casey Smith FLW, or a lot of my stuff on there was from Kitech days in the past, stuff like that. So you should be able to find it. I don't even mind if you email me, caseysmith0713@gmail.com, if people have questions about anything we talked about. And sponsor-wise, Sims, Ranger Boats, Evinrude, Thayer's Marine. I don't know. I'm going to forget somebody, but those are the people that, take care of me. And sponsors is a whole nother thing we could get into here that probably would take another, I don't know how long we've been on, an hour probably, but
almost an hour. Yeah.
We could probably go another hour or two on that, but I definitely try and align myself with companies and people who run those companies who I really appreciate me and can represent good quality products, and don't push me to do things that I'm uncomfortable with. And all those companies are just that, and they truly are some of the best stuff that is out there.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, and that's awesome. What I think upon you saying that, we'll have to get you back on halfway through the season if you have time, and we'll get a mid-season update from you, and then We'll have a whole segment talking about the pros and cons of sponsors and what have you. So
yeah, we could go on. Me and you talked this weekend about it a little bit at the show, and we could go on forever. It's a necessary evil. I'm aware of it. I'm aware of social media being a necessary evil. We've talked about some of the reasons I don't like it. earlier, there's reasons sponsor-wise that I'm not a huge fan of some of the things that go on. But I think what it comes down to for me is deep down, I love to bass fish. I love to do well and win tournaments. I love to catch big fish, and I like to do it with my best buddies. And I like to do it in a t-shirt and jeans on my own time, and that's just what I've got in me. And that's right for some people, not right for other people. It is what it is. That's what I'm going to be, and I'm going to try and never change that. And not going to say it's not going to have to change because the industry might force it to change. But even if it does change, I hope people listen to this and know that inside that's what I love to do is just catch fish, be on the water, and enjoy it.
Yeah, and it's one conversation I've had. We won't dwell into it too much. We can save that for another time. But having a partnership over a sponsorship, where it's a sponsorship almost sounds like a one-way street, whereas
Right.
a partnership, when you work with a company that works with you and accepts your style, and as long as you're doing something you believe in, and if they believe in you and what your style is, that's what's all that matters. That's how you build that foundation. That's what it sounds like you have with the
Right.
folks that are supporting you and behind you. So
Yeah, I mean, I've learned a lot about sponsors. I've dallied with sponsors since I was in Rochester Bassmasters, and it doesn't matter if it was stuff that was 10 or 20% off, or it was paying sponsors who were covering your entry fees and your costs. I've had kind of the full run of both of those, and I've learned a lot from all of those. And I feel right now that I know more about what I want out of a sponsor and what I can do for a sponsor than I ever did before. And I also know not to enter into a deal, even if it's not a bad deal, say product wise or financially. I know not to enter into it if they're going to ask me to do things I'm not comfortable with, because I know me and I'm not going to do them.
that's
And I
awesome.
don't want to let somebody down with that. And,
Yeah,
I've had some great sponsors in the past. I don't want people to take that the wrong way. I had a great bait sponsor for a long time that things went very well for a long time. So I don't want anybody to think that listens to this that that's what I'm talking about or any of that. I just know to get where I got to go, I think I understand a lot more about what I need to do, sponsor wise and look for. And I'm working on that all the time.
yeah. Well, I think that's a message to people that when you're looking for those sort of things, I think it's important to stay true to yourself and
Yeah.
really not conforming to somebody who's trying to push you a certain way. Being the angler you want to be and the image that you want to portray. I think
Right.
anybody else's input, it's irrelevant besides your own. So
Yep.
that's good. So keep that up. I see some big things for you. I hope it comes. But we're gonna hop into these last two questions before
All
we
right.
end our hour plus long podcast here tonight. We can go on for hours, but this question I like to ask because everybody's answer is always different and it's interesting. But if you were to have dinner and have dinner and sit down with three different people, past or present, just to pick their brain, who would they be? And they don't have to be fishing; it could be anybody.
Uh,
It's a stumper.
it's hard not to say three of my best buddies.
You can do that. You can do, like you
No,
said, you can do any.
that would be one. At the same time, past, I would love to sit down and have a dinner at this point with my grandfather, who was
Yeah.
the one who, took me fishing on Cayuga and got my dad. That's the one who took my dad fishing. So that would be huge. I'm not going to say any more about that before I break down
I
on
don't blame
camera
you.
here, but that would be one. I got to go with those, my grandfather and my buddies.
I like
That's
that.
like goes back to being t-shirt and jeans type of
Yeah.
fisherman. I mean, there's some other cool answers, I guess, out there. Brian Thrift would be cool or whatever, but to me, that's the people I care about. That's the people who I want to think I'm doing. Those are the people I want to think of me a certain way. I don't really care a whole lot about what the
Yeah.
rest of the world thinks about it, whether they like the way I go about it or not. But I want those people, my buddies and my grandfather, to know that I work hard and care about it. And when I do well, it's for them. And I guess I don't want to saying that I don't want to exclude my wife and son from that because they're a huge part of it. But
Yeah.
that's the group of people that I care the most about, and I want them to know that when I'm, working hard and away from home, I'm doing it for them. So
Yeah, that's perfect. It's staying down to earth and true to who you are. So that's a perfect answer. That's awesome. I like that.
cool.
Yeah, so we'll cap it off with this last question. So it's plain and simple. First thing that comes to your mind is your favorite fishing memory.
Oh man, fortunately there's so many. The Potomac was really good, man. The Potomac was good. I also remember when I was little, I caught this giant off the dock in the spring on a jig. It was this big, nasty, blackened jig with a huge, like, pork trailer on it. And it was on a spinning rod. And I have a hat on it says 1989 New York Bass Federation 6-man team. And it was one of those, like, 90s or 80s hats where the top of it's like you could fit a 4-pounder under the top of the hat. It's so tall. It was my dad's, but I was wearing it. And I had this was before your time, but I had a Ranger Boats jacket on, and on the back it said Ranger Boats Flipping Arkansas. I mean, dude, I was probably 8, 9, 10 years old. I was little. I don't remember how little I was, but
Yeah.
I got to imagine if I walked into a store, people were like, "What is that kid wearing? Ranger Boats Flipping Arkansas." It's just what I was.
Yeah.
But, catching that big one off the dock, that's a picture that I look at all the time, and I still have it in my house, and that was a big fish. And I remember my dad and uncle and my grandpa was alive at the time. Everybody just astonished that a little kid my size caught that bass and caught it off a dock on a ridiculous, what kid that age throws a jig?
Yeah.
So, probably that, that, and then the Potomac. I guess we'll make it a toss-up.
That's awesome. That's perfect. I would love to see that picture at some point. See,
I'll text it to you or something, and
Yeah.
or DM it to you, and maybe you can share it on a page or something like that. I got it inside. I'll get it actually I got it saved right on my phone.
That's awesome. Perfect. Well, Casey, man, it's been a pleasure to have you on here. I appreciate you taking time out of your day. I know obviously you have a day job and things that keep you busy, and tournaments are wrapping up. They're about to start real quick here, so I know time is not of the essence for you shortly here, but appreciate you taking the time tonight to hop on here, and I wish you the best moving forward. I know we're going to stay in touch, but I hope to have you back on this podcast down the road so we see how well you're doing with the Costas.
Yeah, anytime. I appreciate it. It was good to catch up this weekend and meet you at the expo, and I hope it's here sooner rather than later because I'm ready to go right now. I'm standing out here in the garage. I got my new boat in this fall. I didn't even really get to use it, and it smells like fiberglass, and I want to take it out and go fishing, man. So bad. Well, we got a little while to wait.
A little bit, yeah, but I don't blame you. But soon enough, it'll be here before you know it. So go get ready, get prepared. I'm sure you will. But wishing you the best, and we'll be watching, man.
Thank you very much, man. Stay in touch.
Yeah, you too. Have a good night.
Yeah, you too.
So it was a great conversation that we just had with Casey there. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Maybe learned something new. Something to kind of add to your strategy moving forward if you're a competitive angler or if you're just trying to have a successful day out in the water. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Head down below, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you like the podcast and don't want to continue watching them, listening to them on YouTube, again, you can find the Serious Angler podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the Anchor app. So many podcast applications where you can find us and listen and follow along. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.